back to World Crisis Radio. Keep up with all of this, of course, at tarpley.net. Now, let's see where this Irish crisis goes, just in terms of Ireland. As of Tuesday, Wednesday, before the U.S. Thanksgiving, reports were that Irish bonds were falling. The prices were going down. The credit default swap spreads vis-a-vis the German European benchmark securities were increasing also in the case of Ireland, despite the 100 billion euro bailout that had been cobbled together. The thing to watch now is, will there be a series of panic withdrawals, panic runs, essentially, on the Irish banks, despite the presence of the state guarantee? And if this happens, the next group to fall will not necessarily be Portugal or Spain, but directly the British, because the British banks, the City of London banks, are the ones that seem to be most heavily represented in the Irish banks holding their bonds and taking part in this so-called Celtic bubble, which is really what it was. Remember, of course, that when you talk about the real estate side of it, that's all well and good. But all the real estate in Ireland can't get you up to the amounts of money that we're talking about now. Only derivatives can generate losses of that order of magnitude. So the answer is, you got hit by derivatives, ban derivatives, ban credit default swaps, ban collateralized debt obligations, tax the rest of them with a hefty 1% or even more Tobin tax, right? If we have to pay 23% sales tax, the average person's paying 23% sales tax on shoes for the kids. The bankers are paying nothing. This is absolutely grotesque hypocrisy, double standard. So watch the withdrawals, the rate of cash leaving these Irish banks, because that will show the speed at which this crisis is going. And there is, again, a possibility that it will jump across the Irish Sea and get to London. Remember, as we stressed in the springtime, this is the second phase of a world economic depression. Last time it started in October, November 1929, and by the spring of 1931, you had a banking crisis starting then in Europe with Austria going around Eastern Europe, coming to Germany in July, and then getting to the British pound, which was essentially went bankrupt on September 21st, 1931, when the Bank of England went off the gold standard. This time, again, we had the crisis breaking out primarily in New York in September of 2008, and now here we are a little bit more than 2 years after that, and we're seeing a European banking crisis that started in Europe back in Greece and Spain and Portugal back in the springtime, which has now gone through several phases. It's going a little bit slower than 1931, but essentially it. And this, remember, the peak of the banking crisis in the last depression was this British default, British going off the gold standard, September 21st, 1931. And if it gets to the British, then we'll be, right now we're two months behind the 1931 calendar. And not that we believe in determinism, it doesn't repeat itself in direct, literal terms, mechanistically, but still, there is a broad parallel between what's going on. Now, as of Tuesday, the euro had lost 1.5% in one day and was at a 7-week low. So basically, for 2 months, the euro has been going down compared to the dollar. That's a result of this cynically organized attack on the euro using credit default swaps. World stocks on Tuesday were down 1 to 2%, except the ones that stood out. Dublin was down 3%, and Madrid was down 3%, indicating that the credit default swaps attack, the hedge fund wolf pack, is moving towards Iberia, certainly, Portugal and Spain. The crisis, therefore, rolls on. Now, let's just, the European leaders, if we can call them that, Van Rompuy, the broken man, right, l'homme rompu, says that the euro is now in a survival crisis. Well, interesting. Merkel says of Germany, the European Union is in an exceptionally serious crisis. The Irish finance minister said, don't panic. And, of course, when the finance minister says don't panic, that's the time when you want to panic. Now, let's go through some of the other pieces of economic news. U.S. existing home sales down 2.2%. Prices were down 1%. So the entire housing bubble, the attempt to puff up the housing bubble again by the Obama regime, is also failing. The FBI is again raiding these hedge funds, mutual funds, going after the little fish. No reports of any raids at J.P. Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Citibank, or Bank of America, where they might push some of those institutions over the edge. The Financial Stability Oversight Board with Sheila Bair, high priestess of Too Big to Fail. This is a woman, this is Ma Barker. She ignores the law. Her law is one thing, too big to fail. So she shuts down little banks every Friday. 850 U.S. banks are now on the list. So she is in a state of perpetual insurrection against the existing public laws of the United States. And nobody does anything, and the media, of course, love her for this. Bernanke under heavy attack. Now, the fraud closure crisis, and this is in the form of a challenge, quite frankly. We have the Tea Party coming forward saying that they're populists. Oh, populists. You want to do something for the people, for the American middle class. They've talked about all kinds of things. What we now have, clearly enough, is a fraud closure situation where zombie bankers are openly, flagrantly, blatantly using fraudulent paperwork. They're committing perjury and other crimes in order to steal homes. They want these homes. They want to foreclose. Don't listen to that story that banks don't want to foreclose. They're eager to foreclose. They can't wait to foreclose. We're told that the method, I think we talked about this last week, is they'll tell you you can get on the Obama plan for mortgage relief, but in order to do that, you have to go into a default. And once you go into a default, they don't wait for this Obama program, which hardly exists, to come around. They simply come in and seize your house as fast as they possibly can because the individuals involved are getting very lucrative fees. Now, the pressure going on right now, we went through the various lobbyists that are doing it, right? The Livingston, right, the former Republican candidate to be Speaker of the House until Larry Flint knocked him out of the box. He is attempting to lead the charge to get Congress to legalize retrospectively, ex post facto, the fraud closure practices of the leading zombie banks. Now, I guess maybe I haven't been looking at the news enough, but I don't see the Tea Party out in front. I don't see these people who beat the drum for private property, individual rights, the sanctity of contracts, and maybe even the rule of law. I don't see them out there protesting the actions of the zombie banks. What could it be? Maybe I'm not looking at the right news media. I see the Black Caucus. I see Maxine Waters. Fine, you don't like Maxine Waters. Anyway, the black community for sure is among the hardest hit by these zombie bankers and their fraud closures because it hits, obviously, people who don't have a lot of money. And at the same time, you see the sort of New Deal group, I guess we'd have to call them that, the Marcy Kaptur of Ohio and Peter DeFazio of Oregon in the House of Representatives. These are the people we see protesting. In particular, Marcy Kaptur has been doing yeoman service, right? She's the one who's been putting up this, the hue and cry, produce the note, and if you don't produce the note, you're not going to get my house, right? She wants people to resist, and she's been on all kinds of media. You can see Marcy Kaptur on Dylan Radigan, for example, the other day on MSNBC, and she's saying that what she wants to do is a law that will say Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac cannot buy mortgage securities, right, asset-backed securities, mortgage-backed securities, which are derivatives, can't buy them if they come through this MERS, this mortgage tracking system created by the zombie bankers to get around to flaunt local laws, right, the old traditional thing, Anglo-Saxon common law, that you got to record the owners of pieces of property at the county office. So where are the Tea Party on this? Where are our heroes, the populist fire eaters, who want to do so much to defend private property? I suspect it's because the private property they were talking about was the private property of the zombie banks, not of the American people. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.